We're back. What's going on, everybody? It has been way too long. Holidays in the mix, all kinds of craziness happening that's kept us busy. I'm sure everybody out there has been busy too, but things have been happening. Things have been moving. We needed to get back together to start talking about it all after that little break. It was kind of nice to refresh, rejuvenate, kind of get ourselves back in order and ready for the new season and second half of the Super League season. So I'm hoping everybody is refreshed, rejuvenated. We are going to kind of get back into the swing of things, but we're going to try and focus a little bit on the championship news that's come up for this episode because there's been quite a bit of it. And we did listen to everybody's feedback from our survey. And we understand that maybe 8-hour long episodes might be a little long. It might be. I don't know. Unless you're just somebody who digs watching the Lord of the Rings extended director's cuts all in one setting. Maybe you're into that type of thing. But it seems most of you guys would like it to be a little bit more manageable, kind of like a charcuterie board of pod episodes where you get your like little snacks and you feel good, as opposed to going to a giant buffet and then Takeru Kobayashi's there and he challenges you. So we're going to try and fix that. But yeah, let's kind of check in with the crew. Kyle is sporting his Crystal Palace kit. He's feeling high on things. Been a lot of EPL action here lately. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. It's good to be back, Tyler. It's been a while, as you mentioned that. So yeah, Crystal Palace 7 in a row unbeaten. But obviously that's not the team we're here to talk about. But it's going well, and obviously we have the American football season's coming to an end too. So good time in the sports calendar, and it's a good time to stay inside because it's really cold outside, and that's all the time I have. So I'll move it along to Dylan.
I mean, if you're like me, American football is forever because they're a good band, but that's beside the point. Yeah, sorry, that's an inside joke. But yeah, things are going pretty well. Just braving the cold, everyone is. I mean, like it's under 10 degrees here in Lexington, and it's just getting colder and colder. So I don't know, I'm just bundled up at home, braving it. But it's fun. We got a lot of sports on. We got the NFL playoffs. Go Birds. I hope Notre Dame is doing well right now. Last time I checked, it was 7-0. But yeah, I didn't have high hopes for them to begin with. But it is what it is. Chelsea
14-7
so.
Buckeyes at the moment. Just
yeah,
live score
it's
update.
Just like I think you guys will relate to this, but just all your teams can't do well at the same time. So it's like, the Sixers are in shambles, but the Eagles are hot. So, whatever. Jessica, how are you doing?
Oh, actually, I almost forgot something. Here, give me a second.
Oh, okay. I bet I know what she's doing. In the meantime, I will say I'm willing to let your Eagles take a hit and not win a Super Bowl. So that way LSC wins the championship this year.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to sacrifice.
Put that out there, dude. You're not going to beat the Chiefs anyway. Did you see what happened like the other day? Like
Patrick Mahomes kissing the ref?
Yeah.
It's a real picture.
Best friends forever.
I realized if I was going to really fit in, I should be prepared. There we go.
I enjoy this because, like, on the level of beard spectrum that's going on the pod right now, you've reached like Yukon Cornelius level.
I was about to say it's Yukon Cornelius.
I love it. Silver and gold. That's what we're winning this year.
Have the most epic beard of the group.
If you aren't like watching this, if you're just listening, you at least need to like go in at like the 4-minute mark and check this out. You have to.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know some of you guys only listen, but Jessica has joined the Redbeard gang. I don't know if that's like our official name or what, but
I anticipated a bald cap. That's what I would. That's that's what
I don't
know how quickly I would have been able to get that on though for the
complete the look.
But
I would have been very impressed if you came on with a bald cap. I'm telling you.
Yeah, but Ugh. Okay. Yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys manage, but anyways, but I'm good.
Lifestyle.
On that note, thought I'd have a little fun with that. Maybe I'll wear it to a game.
I love it. And bring those profiteroles that you made. That'll be our new tailgate food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jessica posted some profiteroles that she made at home, and they looked amazing. So we're gonna be fancy at the
Cream
tailgates.
puffs.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
They're-
Layman terms. Throwing it out there for us.
Felt like
Anybody
doing
who
a little
doesn't
baking.
watch. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Man.
I was just nodding along, like, yeah, I know exactly what that is, and
Like,
you gotta watch
if-
more cooking
If
shows.
you've had
dude.
like the eclairs from like Sam's Club or something, it's like essentially
I've definitely
those.
had those.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I made them from scratch.
Boom! Look at that! Look at this. I mean, we're up in our level now. We have CKL cream puffs.
I can
love
even
it.
make them green.
Pistachio
Boom.
filled.
That's
Heck
actually
yes.
what I'm considering doing next because I love pistachio flavored things.
That is like one of my favorites. I make lattes every morning, pistachio flavored.
I'm glad I'm not the only one because sometimes I go to coffee shops and ask if they have pistachio, and they almost always say no. There's a
Haters.
one here, a local coffee shop though by me that has pistachio syrup in it, and they're like, "You're the only one who gets it," and I'm like, "All right, I will claim the bottle for myself."
I go to Leestown coffee house and they have it on their menu, and I get it like every day.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. Yeah. So
Pistachio
I'll
gang.
make some pistachio cream for I'll bring them to the next game
There we go.
Sounds dope.
if I have time.
We with their profiteroles in the stand, cheering it on. I love it. That'll be a game day food. Everybody's like, "Did you make wings?" I'm like, nope, we got cream puffs here. We're just different like that. It'd be
'Cause
official
we're
game day
cool.
food of the team.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Anyways, yep, good stuff.
I love it. Yeah, it's good. I'm ready though. I'm ready for some action with LSC. I am ready to be back in the stands. Cream puffs or not, it just seems it's nice to have these little breaks to just kind of like decompress, process the end of a season, process the midway point of another season, and just kind of like take a breather. And then see all these things rolling in, all this news, all these signings. But I am ready to be back at the stables. I am kind of glad we're not back at the stables this week in particular, though, because man, it'll be kind of intense unless you're up in like the box. You're probably not feeling great, and you're probably a hardcore fan for sure. Which, I mean, let's be honest, I'd be there. My skin just might be stuck to the like metal on the seats or something, but you'd save me. Somebody would. So let's hop into like brief. I told everybody we're gonna focus on championship for this episode a little bit more, but we can't ignore what happened today. We're recording on Monday, MLK Day. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We had 3 signings for the Super League. We will delve into these signings on the next episode whenever we get into our Super League mix a little bit more, but I don't want to do them injustice by hopping on the day they're signed and being like, I know their name. Here is their name. It's like, you guys know that. I would like to talk a little bit more about them and what they might add to the team and why they would be a good fit for us. But we got a defender. We ended up with a midfielder, and we got ourselves a forward. So we got somebody for each section of the field minus keeper, which I think is good. I don't think that's a bad thing. Considering we lost Amanda Allen, our defense, for as good as our players are, we've shut goals out. I think it just gives us more options. Who knows if they're going to be starters? They're going to be in the 11. Who knows if they'll even be in the 18 as we kind of get rolling into the season? Might take some time to get there, but I think it's still great that we have these options. So we ended up having a forward, Hannah White, right? So she joined us. She's coming in to help hopefully add some more goals to the mix. Really, really strong pressing forward. I do know that about her, so that's exciting. I kind of imagine in my brain, I'm like, what if like we have her and Maddie Parsons just like switching off pressing and just keeping that pressure on constantly on the team? I think that could be really exciting and super dangerous to watch. We also ended up with Cynthia Cabezas, who is a new signing for San Diego Wave in NWSL. I think, if I remember right, I thought I saw they just posted today that they signed her, and we just posted today that we got her on loan. So It was kind of a quick turnaround. I was kind of surprised that it all happened in the same day. But clearly, they see some benefit in us having her here to kind of polish up some skills or just kind of get her up to fitness or whatever the case might be. Who knows? But it is exciting that we have somebody joining us that can kind of bolster our defense. And then we also got a midfielder joining us too. We had Nicole Vernus, who's coming in the mix. Seems like a really great chance creator, somebody that's a playmaker, creative. So I don't know. We'll kind of get into the nitty gritty of it all next time, but I like these signings. I think a lot of people were expecting like some big name splashes. But I think that this is good that we're going off the beaten path and finding talent where we can to hopefully kind of push us a little bit more because, we need this second half of the season to really take off. we kind of have to. So first impressions, we'll do that real quick before we go. How are we feeling about adding somebody to each of the sections of our field? Jessica?
I mean, yeah, definitely good to have some versatility in there. And yeah, definitely excited ramping into the spring season. Yeah, just never know. But
yeah. I feel good about it. I think we can agree. It's nice to see that we at least have some new names here that maybe will carry us forward into what we want to do and maybe make us more dangerous. So anyway, we'll get into that. Let's kind of switch over to some other big news. I like talking about this probably most of all. I forgot to put it in the show notes, and Jessica was like, "Are we going to talk about this?" And I'm like, "Oh man, how could I have forgotten? What is wrong with me?" New kit partnership, new apparel partnership as a whole, right? So we're moving away from Nike, which everybody who listens probably has particular feelings about Nike, and I've said it before, as far as like a player standpoint goes, I mean, those Vapor kits were amazing. They're super awesome. They probably perform very well on the field. Some of the other Nike stuff I'm sure was fine. But I will say part of having kits is getting sales from those kits and getting people to want to wear those kits. And Nike was very constricting on doing really anything. I mean, Kyle, probably more than anybody because you were heavily involved in the design process for some of our kits early on. They just didn't have much to work with, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was essentially like if you operate a club like youth team, or like if you're like an AAU team for basketball, for example, and you get the catalog from Nike and you get to like go through their templates and pick it out and slap your logo on it. That's essentially what Lexington SC was given, to choose from, which for a professional team just doesn't feel like it's, exactly what you want for your fans. And there's a little bit of customization, like we were able to put some designs on the front, but it's very limited. And to your point with the sales too, like I'm a Nike guy. I love Nike, tennis shoes, shirts, sweatshirts, everything. But like when it comes to just the size of the club Lexington is, and then just wanting to be accessible for fans, especially like soccer fans, Nike just wasn't a great fit, I don't think, for the club. I mean, I think this jersey that I got across the pond was cheaper than the Nike kit that Lexington sold.
oh yeah,
and
for sure.
So I think it was just, and not that price is everything, and obviously it's a lot of the pricing is set by Nike anyway. So I mean, you have to make money on it, so you can't, the club can't buy it for $60 and sell it for $65. Like they need to mark it up quite a bit. So yeah, I think it's a great move, and hopefully offer some more customization too from a brand that is like a soccer brand. I mean, I know they do other sports, but first and foremost, I think people associate Hummel with soccer.
Yeah, and so you just name drop who we moved to, Hummel, right?
Oh, my bad. Did I?
No, that was good. What do you mean by bad? That's perfect. That's a good segue, Kyle. Yes, A+. But Hummel, like honestly, for me, if we were going to move to a kit provider, I wanted it to either be Charlie or Hummel. Whenever San Diego Loyal was going away, we ended up getting a kit from them. My wife and I, we each got one because we're like, oh, these are really cool and they're on sale, and why not? And like the quality was insane on those things. And the designs were really cool. Hummel, all their designs that I see, unless like a club has been restrictive about what they want from Hummel, I feel like whenever like they're like, hey, let's be really crazy, Hummel delivers and makes some really, really cool stuff. I know like the new Greenland national team kits have been like really out there being advertised all over the place, which are very, very neat and very much tied to the culture and just like the vibe of Greenland, which I think is awesome. And I think with a company like Hummel, that's what you need to lean into completely. Like I'll be kind of bummed, honestly, if we're like, we just moved to Hummel and it's like green. And I'm like, but what else is on there? And they're like, some green.
A horse.
Yeah, like what? Not even be cool with a horse. Like I just want it to be something that's like, this is Lexington. Like this is them. Like it has character. It has the culture of our city entwined in some way. Because I think if you're going to ask people to pay a hefty price on things, Hummel in general seems to be a little bit more economical, especially whenever you allow them to offer like replica kits versus like the full blown, like this is what the players wear, which let's be honest, like it's cool, but you don't need to wear exactly what the players wear. Like I'm not out here rocking that vapor kit because I'm going to go out there and bicycle kick. But I think like Hummel's whole thing about being able to have this much character embedded into their kits, that's going to get people to want to wear those things. And I did notice that some people had mentioned once we announced this partnership that one of the flaws with Nike seems to be remedied, at least from what I'm hearing. I haven't checked fully if it's a possibility for us, but it sounds like Hummel is offering larger sizes too. So like Nike, it would cap out at like 2X, and like or 2X, and that thing would get a little snug. But Hummel offers beyond that, which I think is going to be great for that whole disenfranchised section of our fan base that would love to rep our club and wear one of our kits, but they just didn't have the sizing for it. So I think that's a really neat aspect of this partnership. So what other thoughts we got on like Hummel? How are we feeling about this?
I'm excited. Like mentioning pricing, my kid asking for a jersey when it was the previous kits, I'm like, I don't know about that. But I feel like you mentioned, Kyle, getting our Wolves jerseys, like I could get several jerseys for the same price as one of the Nike. So definitely looking forward to the affordability side of things. And honestly, mentioning tying in with Lexington's culture and how we call the LSE Stadium the Stables would be really cool if they did some sort of like jockey style, like because they have a lot of like in their flags. I don't know much about horses and jockeys. I don't know, but I do know like a lot of them have a lot of really unique jerseys, or I don't know. Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong. But
silks.
Yeah,
that's what the jockeys wear, silks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So yes.
Yeah, and that's actually what the first away kit was based off, was the Dixiana silk. That Dixiana, the owner of the Dixiana farm, owns the soccer club, and so we fashioned it after his jockey silks a little bit. So that was kind of that inspiration, but it was pretty minimal because that was really all we could do. But that was that diamond pattern up the front. So but no, I think you're right. The more you can sublimate or however they want to emboss it, like this kit has like Crystal Palace, like the building in the background of the kit, so just being more creative with the design itself. But didn't want to cut off Dylan there. I don't know if you had anything to counter there, Dylan.
Oh no, no, not really. I think this is a good move for us. I was on record on the pod saying that like I didn't really like the Nike stuff, like especially like this. All my Nike wear shrunk in the wash and dryer, and now it's like a little bit more snug and stuff. So I didn't appreciate that. So I'm, hopefully we can remedy that. And yeah, I'm hoping for some, nicer kits, some cool designs. I do hope we have a kind of like a standard, nice, clean home kit, but then, maybe for the away and the alternative kit, then we can get into some like crazy designs for sure, whether that's multicolored or there's, a fancy pattern on it, whatever. But I would like to have a nice clean one for sure, you know, just to kind of balance. I think an alternative kit, like a third kit, is where you can, you know, have the creative designs or the charity, get the charities involved too, you know.
Maybe we can just have like a kit that's just a giant picture of thunder on one side and lightning on the back. We'll just go all in with like, why do you have like a giant horse on there? I'm like, first of all, they are not giant; they're mini horses. Just call it the Thunder and Lightning kit.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
And their
right.
Their Instagram page, they were kind of doing a little sneak peek of some of their merch, and I'm really excited for that too.
Yeah, I think it'll be really nice. I mean, like, I know that it kind of varies, like I said, club by club, because I've heard some, you know, clubs be like, oh, it was kind of underwhelming for us. And other clubs are like, man, they knocked it out of the park and I loved it. But I have also heard in the instances where there's success or a little bit of dissatisfaction, it kind of also falls on like the club and how much they want it to look a certain way, or, you know, what they want produced in particular. So I just hope we'll allow them enough freedom and enough creativity from our end to make it something that's really cool. And I think people will lean into it. Honestly, I think that, you know, we'll see more people rocking kits and merch if it's, you know, nice, if it has character, if it's maybe a little bit more affordable. I think those are all factors that are going to play in big. So I'm stoked about the partnership. Like I said, aside from Charlie, this was the one that was on my bucket list. I'm like, okay, at least one of these two. Let's go with one or the other. We got our wish, so it's good. But I guess it kind of makes sense too. We didn't go with Charlie because did Lou City end up going Charlie? I feel like I saw somewhere Lou City went with Charlie. I don't know. Some Lou City person will listen and then they'll tell me at some point. But I think I remember that, so can't go with the same thing, right? We just Lou City Hate Week. Did you guys see that post? This is a side. Did you see that post Lou City made, kind of throwing shade at us? No, you guys. Okay, I think it slipped under a lot of people's radar. There was like,
I did see.
Yeah, they took a quote from somebody, and then they were like, "Yeah, we're a season ticket member and have been forever, and we drive all the way from Lexington." And
it's not too far from Lexington.
Yeah, they were like, "We drive over an hour from Lexington," and I was like, "I see you, Lou City. All right," but yeah, we'll see what's up. We'll see what's up. We got a couple of chances this year to kind of test ourselves against them, and you know, maybe people will stop wanting to make that long drive up there. No, I don't know.
I think we're definitely setting up a good team.
Yeah,
a formidable team.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. Let's get into that though. Let's get into this seemingly formidable team that we've been producing, amassing, building, creating. We've got a pretty hefty roster at this point. So right now we've got 23 players on roster that we know of that have been announced or that we seem to know are on the team. Kyle is going to be our rundown guy and hit us with our roster currently. And we've had 8 signings, in fact, since our last episode. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about them, not a ton, but just kind of maybe talk about, you know, who is going to have high expectations and whatnot. Kyle, take it away, man.
Okay, so I'll go through the roster. I will note when a player is new since our last signing, and also note if it's a returning player, which most folks would know anyway. But this might not be the best podcasting, so if you don't have a pen or pencil, like maybe go grab one so you can write these down. But here we go. We'll start at the back, and in the goalkeeper room, we have Logan Ketterer. That's it. We got one goal. We got one keeper.
That's all we need.
We got Logan Ketterer. All right, we're holding it down. And I won't go through any details. I mean, I can go through like age and all that with these players, but
yeah,
I know we'll get into some more of the new guys anyway. We've talked about some of these defenders at the center back position. Xavier Zingy. Did I say that right? I know we've talked about him already.
Zingy.
Okay. Yeah. I have pronunciations written down, then I realized I didn't write his down. So Zingay, who was part of the squad on our last episode, and then 3 signings since then in the center back position. We have Danny Barbier, Kendall Burks, and Joe Hafferty. Fullbacks, Jacob Green, Lucas Stauffer and Kimball Jackson returning. Those were all part of the initial roster that we spoke about on the last pod. A lot of new midfielders to the scene, including these four. We have Edric Caceres, Sophie, I'm going to just call him Sophie Jafal, Nick Firmino, and Alfredo Medence, who is a name that a lot of folks might remember. And they joined Speedy Williams and Yannick Yankum at the midfield position. We have a lot of it seems like crossover midfield, forward, midfield, attacking player.
And
But those
Nico.
are Nico Brown, who I have under forwards. I feel like midfield probably would be more appropriate since he played midfield. Dylan Borchek. Sorry, moving on to forwards. We got Dylan Borchek, Marcus Epps, Elliot Goldthorpe, and Milo Yosef joining Azad Liaudi, Cam Lancaster, and Ates Diouf as the returners. The only new one since our last episode is Malik Henry Scott. I think that's all of them, and I hope I had everyone's positions correct and mostly the pronunciations correct. Did I forget anyone?
I feel like you got them. I feel like I was trying to follow you. I was looking at my alternate list, so it wasn't in the same order. So I'm pretty sure I heard everybody's name. And as far as positions, let's be honest, they don't really matter. It's just like in year one, whenever everybody was like, "Yeah, Tate is a defender. No, Tate is a midfielder.
Yeah.
No, Tate is a goalie." Like nobody really knew. We just knew he was out there and he was sending in crosses. That's it. That's all we needed.
It was good to see Tate back in goal that one game.
Yeah.
There are very few players on this roster that have one position kind of carved out, which is, I think a lot of coaches like that, but it's also pretty common, I think, to see. So there you go. That's the roster, including some of the new folks, some new names since our last pod. Tyler, I'll turn it over to you now. How do you want to proceed?
That was perfect. Yes, immaculate. All right, hey, but we have a pretty flushed out roster. It seems like we have at least a couple people for each position, especially with the versatility. You can probably bump those numbers up, except for keeper. I think everybody's sitting here and just okay, all right, yeah, okay, we got another forward. That's good, but but we'll kind of get to that. But let's kind of focus on the newest 8. Last episode, we had, I think, 6 players that had joined new by the time we recorded, and we were talking about which one we felt like was maybe going to be that impact player, or maybe we were just excited to see, not necessarily making a prediction about how much they're going to contribute on the field, but maybe we were just like, you know what, I want to see what this person has out there. So our newest 8 that we have, I'm curious with you all, who kind of stood out of the list of 8 that you're like, you know what, that person is going to be a game changer, or just, you know what, let's see what they got. I'm curious.
Kendall Burks.
Ooh, good shout. Yeah.
I think young stud, great experience, tall. I said I liked tall before, in a center back. That was one thing I wanted. This guy's really, really good. Man, the fact that he's only 25 too, he's recognized as one of the top center backs in the championship, from last season. He can initiate plays from the back as well. The man is just super, super talented. I think it's no question for me between the new guys that he is the one that I'm the most excited for. And especially with last season, where defense was not the strong suit. We didn't really have a strong suit as a team, but defense was pretty leaky, and it made things rough on our keeper at times. So I'm really hoping this nice standout. I hope this is a reaction to the poor defensive play from last season.
Yeah, John Morsey, if anybody that's listening is not familiar with him, he does USL Tactics. He's mainly active on Blue Sky and Twitter and all that, but he actually writes some stuff for the league, some analysis stuff for the championship and USL 1. He had marked him down as the league's best center back last year. So, I mean, if that tells you anything, and I will tell you, if you're not familiar with this stuff, John knows his stuff. Like the guy knows his stuff in and out, especially with the USL, and all of his like models and analytics marked him down as the best center back that you could go out and get from the championship. So that's a really good pick.
Quick thing, he led the league in clearances,
Yep.
and he led the league in aerial duels as well. So just
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's kind of backs it all up, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would say like when you're putting a team together and you like just think about like the archetypes of each position, you're just like, all right, I just want a really big, disruptive, solid center back, and that's what it
Absolutely.
is. And like
Yeah.
it's just going to be kind of a bedrock type of player that is not wishy-washy and is not moving to different positions. It's just like this is who he is. And so yeah, I couldn't agree more. That one's an exciting signing for sure.
That one's really solid. I gotta say, for me, like that one, pretty top notch. I'm not gonna lie, but since you guys said it, I'm gonna choose somebody else. Another one that I was kind of thinking about is Nick Firmino, who actually played for Omaha at some point, like early on in their early days, and then he's been at Atlanta United too, and called up to Atlanta United first team periodically. I've heard nothing but great things. And then watching him play, he's explosive. He's somebody that can really ignite the attack. He's very dangerous on his own. It just seems like whenever you're watching him on the field, he elevates the people around him and really kind of sparks something dangerous whenever he wants to. I feel whenever we have an attack going, he's gonna be a part of it. You know what I mean? It seems like I don't want to say he's a lock for the starting 11, but I have a hard time seeing a world where he's not somebody that we lean on quite a lot. And I imagine we're going to hear his name a whole lot, whether it be from assists, goals, or just causing disruption, maybe in opposition defensive lines, and then producing something great.
I wonder how, like, it seems like there's a little bit of overlap there with Yannick too, in terms of like, position and skill set. I just wonder how, I don't know, maybe you have some ideas about how they could kind of coexist, or if it's, maybe there's not as much overlap as I'm thinking, but he's another name that I had kind of marked down, and maybe I should go next because you all are taking all the good ones. But I was just curious how the overlap worked there with Yannick, because it seemed like they have a lot of the same type of skills.
That's what like makes me curious, is if we're going to kind of push Yannick back, kind of a double pivot like we saw a few times last year, or if we're going to let him loose up top as like our cam. Because then I think that they will have to kind of battle it out unless we're playing with a double cam. Then you have to make a choice, like who are you going to go with? And maybe that's where, we have one of those iron sharpens iron type of situations. And then it's just whoever's on that week or throughout a stretch of a month, that's who you're going to see. But you're right. I do feel like they're kind of like for like in a lot of aspects as far as their technical ability, their explosiveness, the feeling like, okay, they're out there, so something's going to happen. Yeah, I agree, man.
For me, and he mainly stuck out just because he played with Boss at some point, Sophie Jafal. Just for that main point, you can tell Boss is, as he's looking at players, he seems pretty familiar with him, and so he kind of stuck out to me a little bit.
Yeah, I really like what he has to offer.
Can I make a note about this? This is not like an indictment on the signing itself, but the idea of like getting a manager and then letting a manager bring in his own guys. How do you guys feel about that philosophy?
I like it if it's not making up your entire roster or like a large chunk of your roster. I think because the one I was going to mention in Joe Hafferty is another one that has some links to the coach. And
Right.
I feel like it can't all be like, it's not all in a vacuum too. So it's like, did they have success together? And did it work out? And if so, then it probably makes sense. But I think I like it because if you're a club and you're putting your faith into a coach and he knows his job's on the line, I mean, he's the third coach in 3 years, then he's not going to bring in players that he doesn't think can help. I don't know. I think I'm more of a fan of it than not, as long as it's not, the entire makeup of the team.
First off, that's Nacho Novo erasure. He's the fourth coach in 3 years. But no, I agree with you,
Sorry,
man.
Nacho.
Like, yeah, he's like listening right now. He's like, wow, Kyle, we only work together, man.
Hey, he's my guy. He's my guy.
Legendary Ranger, Nacho
Legendary.
Novo. Like, just leaving him out.
I didn't count Stocks because he's the sporting director. So there you go.
Oh, okay. That was a good save.
Yeah.
I see what you did there. And you probably just hurt his feelings now, but whatever.
Whatever.
You're not a real coach. You're a sporting director.
Yeah.
Geez, Kyle, just twist the knife. No, like, but I agree with Kyle. I think like it's okay to have some, and it's nice because then you have somebody that you like. The coach hopefully has that good working relationship with and is like, okay, I know that this person maybe can be a really great locker room presence, or maybe this person has the skills that I know will shine in the starting 11, or maybe this person is just really, really good for, being a mentor to other people on the team in some way. Like, you hope that they know them in and out enough that they can make that working relationship flourish in whatever way you need. And again, like Kyle said, you just don't want too much of it. You want it to be like, oh yeah, these were all my former guys. Because for me too, I think that speaks more to you as a coach whenever you can make most of your roster from scratch. And it's like, I've not really played much with these guys. I know of them. Because if you just lean on players that you've always ever played with in mass amounts, you're like, all right, 18 of you, I coached you guys at some point. Like, I feel like that's kind of staying in your comfort zone as a coach, as opposed to being like, all right, we really need to challenge things. And I really do like these guys, but I got to also think of the bigger picture and who can I bring in that I know will maybe challenge me as a coach, but also help us get to where we need to be. So
well, I think too, yeah, definitely. And I think having a good mix of both, I mean, because you got the ones that he is familiar with, the ones he's less familiar with, but taking those and hoping they kind of play off each other's strengths, I think it is probably something he's kind of basing those decisions on, probably.
It's something I feel pretty weird about, because I don't like when teams, this goes across any sport, when someone, you go back to the well, or, you invest in a person because they remind you of someone from the past. And I feel like that's just a nostalgia thing, and that they don't always pan out. And usually, I would say like 80% of the time, it never pans out that way. But in terms of like a coach and player, if they've had success together before, at places, then, if you're not building a whole team around that, if you're not trying to build the same team twice, so I think in our case, a few guys is enough. I wouldn't want to build the whole roster around it, like you're saying.
Yeah. Do you think that could be a potential pitfall then into the season? Is that it's too familiar? Like, if we have too many players that he's familiar with?
I don't know. Just yet, I don't think we have enough of those guys, to say. I feel like last season, it felt like there was a lot of connections, and, maybe this hampered my view a lot. There was a lot of connections to Pal, and just it seemed like there was no connections on the field whatsoever between anyone. So I just worry about those sentiments,
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree. It was pretty all over last year.
And I was going to say too, I think it might also be depending on the position, because like I was going to just mention Joe Hafferty as one that, like, if you bring in a midfielder who's, I know he's mid-20s, like upper 20s, I guess, on a transfer, or sorry, defender, in Joe Hafferty, like on a transfer, I mean, that shows a lot more trust than if you're, to me, bringing in like hey, I coached this guy in college. He left college early. He was an MLS draft. He's 20 years old. He's a forward. Like, let's take a flyer on him type. Like, if it's someone that you really have a lot of experience with, and at a position like center back, like Hafferty's one to me that doesn't really look like a center back, but all of the, all the stats and the experience points to a pretty darn good defender. And so that's a really important position, and one that I would expect him to kind of compete for a starting position. And so to me, that carries more weight if Boss is like, this is my guy, like because that's a position to me that's like you don't want to take a flyer on someone at
No.
that age, at that position,
Mhm.
on a
I agree
transfer.
with that.
So it could
Yeah.
also kind of depend on the player.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how. I mean, Hafferty's what, like 5'9", I think, and so just doesn't look like you're a typical center back. But I know Tyler's right. I did a good job kind of explaining some of the different ways that he impacts the game. I didn't realize he had one yellow card last year and like
Yeah.
26 starts or something. That's
Yeah.
insane.
Isn't that wild?
So,
Yeah,
game.
thinking about how he's just never
Yeah.
getting carded. It's really good. That's what you want. And I think like
Yeah.
you talking about being like 5'9". It's funny because you see a lot of your center backs. You're like, okay, yeah, you're gonna be like 6'4", 215 at least, But then you're like outside backs. You're like, okay, you guys are probably gonna be more like average height, a little bit speedier.
Yeah.
And he's so good at like flipping between those two. He's like a really great hybrid player that can play as like an outside center back and then make those pushes or go out much wider. So that's like you said,
Especially-
he seems
yeah.
like somebody that can lend a lot.
Like if you have someone like Kendall Burks, who we think is like
Mhm.
probably going to be a stay-at-home defender unless it's a set piece because of his height, like
Right.
and then that might allow Hafferty. I mean, obviously we're getting into the weeds a little bit, but or you flip it, and if Hafferty's a good enough one-on-one defender on those set pieces when you have Burks in the box on like a corner or something, then you're less worried about like the counterattack. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he kind of fits in. But he's one I wanted to mention since some of the other names were already brought up. Go ahead, Dill.
I mean, we've talked about it when you were naming all the position or all the players in the positions. Like no one really has a set position, so we
Right.
may see this guy in goalkeeper. We may see this guy at striker. Who knows? We may see something different. Yeah, we most likely will see him in defense, but will we see him like a wing back or inverted wing back, or will he be a true center back? We really don't know. Like, and it's just up in the air.
That's true.
It does seem like I'm going to lead into one of the questions a little bit, but like it seems like on the outside of the pitch is where we don't have a lot of depth right now. Like, I think 3 fullbacks on the roster. Hafferty's got a little bit of right back experience, but like you talk about like 3 fullbacks. Looking at the midfielders, not a ton of experience on like a few that have played winger, a few that have played a little bit of everything. So I'm just like, when we get to lack of depth, like goalkeeper is the one that stands out, but also looking at some of those fullbacks or wingbacks, and it obviously depends on a lot of the shape too. But I don't know, just curious what you all think of like what is still missing when you look at the roster, just like kind of all on one sheet.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, keeper is the obvious answer.
Easy. Yeah.
The fact that we only have one is very concerning, and I'm sure that Ketter is a capable player, but some another name would just be nice to have just for reference at least. But yeah, I agree with you, Kyle. Like not a lot of wide position players, and a lot of even the forwards play inside more as well. So not too much width, just overall on the field. So it'll be very interesting to see where the width comes from.
Yeah. And I think that's just where like we have a lot of that. You can do a little bit of everything, so I might use you a little bit of everywhere type of situation because we have about 6 players that can play wings or outside midfield. Now whether that's where they're going to be, I don't know. When we're talking like true wings or outside midfielders, we got like 4, which isn't insanely deep. So it just points to you're probably going to see a lot of people moving around. But I'm like you, Kyle. I just get curious about the fullback position. It seems, I don't know, it seems like a back 3 type of setup based on who we keep signing and the fact that a lot of our people that are like fullbacks can play as a wide center back. So I don't know, maybe that depth isn't as concerning as it might seem because of how we're planning to play. But I don't know. It's just kind of hard to tell. In my mind, I feel like you could have 4 in the back line, and maybe you just let somebody drift up, and maybe that's why you only really see a few like fullback style players, is because the plan is to let them drift up a little bit more whenever we're in possession, and then you just kind of have a resting back 3 otherwise. So, yeah, it's very very curious to see if we're going to add anybody else in that positional area. I don't really feel like we're particularly hurting in a lot of other like central areas though. Like you mentioned, like we have plenty of people that can fulfill the middle spaces of the field, which is good. I mean, you want that. You want a really strong spine for your team, and I think that we've developed that, at least on paper. Yeah, but I'm curious about the keeper thing too. There's a lot of things at play. You don't know if it's somebody that's coming in internationally and there's a hold up there. You don't know if there's some other paperwork with another team that's trying to go through. But it is always reassuring to know, like, okay, like we've got a competitive keeper room. It's competitive. They're all going to push each other. You're going to have, a lot of challenges in training that are going to keep people sharp. And that way, if something happens to your number one, your number two is just as reliable. And you're not sitting there being like, oh, okay, well, goalkeeper one just went down. I guess there goes the match, because you don't want that, that's for sure.
So I have a question that kind of relates to the whole depth of positions and stuff, and something I haven't quite done the research to fully understand as far as like on transfer, on loan. Do you think that those types of things is something we might utilize to kind of fill the positions that were a little more lacking as far as signings go? And like, I guess if you were to talk to, I guess use me as if you were talking to someone who didn't as fully understand what, kind of talking through that process of being on transfer or on loan, what that kind of means.
Yeah. I mean, Kyle kind of pointed out, like, the transfer, fee that we ended up paying for Joe Hafferty. Like when you pay like a transfer fee, I feel like that shows like you really want that player. Like you're going to go out and you're going to pay what a team's asking to get them in the mix. And that's a good point that you raised too, about maybe that's why we're not seeing people in the positions we're listing out, is maybe we do have a loan coming. We had a couple of loans last year that we initiated and brought people in for positions. So, it could be the case this year. And I think that like sometimes people get caught up in their head that like whenever you say loan, it's like, oh man, we're only going to have that person for a couple of weeks. But it could be, you set up the terms and it's like, hey, look, we want this person for the whole season. You can't just pull them back mid-season. Like we're going to write that into this agreement that we get them for the entire season and then they return to you at the conclusion of the season. And so it can feel more permanent, especially in a league like USL1, USL Championship, where you have all that roster turnover year after year. So then it doesn't really feel like, oh, we just borrowed that player. It's kind of like Isaac, it didn't really feel like we borrowed him. It felt like he was our player for that year, and he was, as opposed to like constantly sweating and being like, okay, is Lou City going to come back and steal him from us? Which, maybe that was part of the agreement. Maybe they could have, and they just didn't need to. But yeah, that is an interesting point you raise about maybe there's another team that's trying to get settled and get all their ducks in an order. And then we're trying to make sure that we have our ducks in an order with them. And then they're going to say, okay, you can have this person for, the 2025 season, and we're going to recall them at some point. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I would say like obviously on a transfer, now this is our player, less to worry about. But Tyler made a great point with a lot of these guys are on 1 or 2 year contracts anyway, so it's not like you're worried that much about a year-long loan being like detrimental to the growth of the team. To Tyler's point, but it's curious now because you start looking at the schedule and like when the first match is, and I wonder if as training sessions go on, they depending on the formation that the club, that boss wants to go with, starts seeing like, okay, we're a little bit weaker here than I thought we would be. Okay, like this position's a little bit stronger than we thought coming in. So like you kind of leave yourself a little bit of roster flexibility into preseason, and that way you can make some of those late additions. And last year, I think, and obviously you can make additions once the season starts too, through certain avenues. So it's not like the roster's set, on that first match day. And we had some really impactful mid-season or even early season additions last year. So I think it's kind of a work in progress. But what is interesting to me is like, and what Tyler said is that, like, what's the formation going to be? And based on the current roster that we have now, like, it almost have to be a three back, like maybe a 3-4, 2-1, or like whatever from there. It's just interesting to see based on like the depth at the moment where we perceive the weaknesses, and then where the coaching staff might say here's where we're weak, and then seeing how they can kind of pounce on players and try to fill those gaps.
Yeah, no, that's good points all around. I think we'll see some more stuff flushed out, and more questions will be answered. It's just I think maybe like we're feeling the heat a little bit more because it's kind of weird thinking that the season starts earlier now that we're in the championship, and then with like the preseason schedule, which we'll get to here in a bit. When we're thinking about our first preseason game being this week, like we're getting ready to play, and then you're like looking at some of these positions, and you're like, oh, we don't have anybody for that. Are we gonna be all right? Like we're going into preseason right now, which I think sometimes the pressure cooker feeling is a little more heightened than it should be for preseason because preseason. You'll get through it. It's kind of testing the waters. It's like year one, right? Like Kyle, didn't we not get like Mane until was it Mane or was it Pila that we didn't get until super late, or was it both of them?
Well, it was Mane who was with the team and practicing. That was a bit of a visa issue, as it were.
Yeah,
but so
right.
there are a lot of those. Like anytime they have, they always say like per or pending league approval or league federation approval, like whatever little language they have to put in all these signings. It's like sometimes those are paperwork issues that get you hung up too, which is kind of a bummer. But yeah, I think it was Pierre that we were waiting on.
Right. Speaking of Mane, ran into him at Malibu Jacks last week, and I know it's a weird aside, but it was cool. He was like, "Man, I loved playing for Lexington," and he's like, "I hope you guys, do great," and I miss it. So, just a little aside. Mane's a cool dude. Hopefully, you run into him and say hi because he's awesome. So, thinking through what we have left, and kind of our concerns about like, well, we're going to get somebody for these positions. Do we already have somebody? Which I kind of suspect we have keepers because when they posted that one training video, there were two other people besides Logan wearing like the yellow t-shirt. Somebody was like, I think it's a penny, but I look back and I look pretty close. They look like they were, the yellow jerseys, training jerseys. So we might already have some people here. We just haven't announced it. But we have who we have. What is kind of like our perception so far of the squad as a whole, like versus last year? Kind of, I know last year a lot of people were like, "Yeah, attack, attack, attack." That's what this squad is. It's going to be all attack, and we're going to score 5,000 goals, and everybody's going to cry except for us. And it was the reverse. But what is kind of our vibe about this team right now?
I have like just a weird vibe overall, just because we're moving up to the championship. It kind of feels like I'm rooting for a whole new team. We don't have a lot of returners. There's question marks about some returners. Altez, he said goodbye in a post. We don't really know what that's all about. So there's just like a weird vibe to this season. We have a new coach too. It seems like this roster was constructed with a definite vision to go with Boss. Like he definitely wants to play a certain style. I don't really know what it is yet, and I don't think I will know until the game starts rolling and we see that there's definitely 3 center backs, and whatever. But I definitely think there is a vision in mind. I have no idea what it is, and to me, I'm not the most well versed in the USL universe, in the cinematic universe of the USL. So I don't know like big name players and stuff. So getting Speedy Williams is a big name guy, right? But like to me, he's just another guy to me. I don't really know. And, that's not a knock on him. That's just how my perception. So I don't really know if I'm excited or not. Last year I put a lot of stock, and I got really excited, and everyone's saying we were going to win the league and everything. A lot of high praise for all the signings and the head coach and everything. So I got really hopeful, and so I'm just have a very different mindset. I'm very open about what the season's going to be. I don't have high expectations. I don't have low expectations. I just expect to see something new.
I would definitely agree with that. And there's definitely the juxtaposition between like grieving the end of last season and everybody that we've lost that we've really grown attached to, and then trying to be excited for all these new players and but not knowing, you know, how engaging they'll be, how they'll play together, how we'll perform. And so, and I think there's just been a lot of hesitation in that sense too, of moving up, forming a new team, uh, losing a lot of people, and the overall uncertainty there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I mean,
Kyle.
no, no, I'm just kind of chiming in terms of like what I think is kind of cool about this season. And, you know, I'm an optimistic person. I feel like the move to the championship will be kind of a nice bit of a reset. You know, to Dylan's point, entered last year with extremely high expectations based on the signings, based on the payroll, frankly, based on, you know, a lot of what we were hearing from inside camp. And it does seem like, you know, the move up to championship and some other changes that were made, and just talking to some folks in the club, it feels like this really is kind of all right, we've got our stuff together. You know what I mean? Like we've got our ducks in a row. We're buttoned up on items that, like, there was a lot of, I mean, there was a lot of dysfunction in the club even when I was there, and a lot of it was just growing pains, like startup pains, right? Like if you ever started a business, that's exactly what it's like.
Right.
Except you're dealing with minor league sports at the same time, which is also kind of you know, a bit of a nightmare in terms of operations. And so I think it's just every bit is that this club is finally putting some stuff together. Now, is it going to result in like in wins? That would be nice. You know, I'm not sure, but it does seem like this is a nice reset, and it doesn't feel like a here we go again type of season. You know, so from my standpoint, I'm optimistic. Like Dylan said, I try not to have too high of expectations, not too low either. I'm just having expectations, and so yeah, we're just gonna have them. And I think it'll be really interesting, you know, playing different competition, and also just geographically, like, you know, playing the west of the USL Championships, kind of strange still, and getting used to that. But it might also be a good thing. I think a lot of folks were anticipating falling right into, you know, playing Lou City and Indy 11 and all these teams, and so now we get a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a fresh start too, schedule wise, and we don't have to play Chattanooga seemingly 4 times a year, and, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry Chattanooga.
Sorry, Chattanooga. Yeah, and I feel optimistic in a couple of ways for this year, because in some aspects it feels very much like last year, like we're going out and spending money and getting people, but a little bit of a difference in this year. We aren't just gambling only on players that our coach seems to have had a past relationship with. It's pretty low number on that, so I feel like we're taking a little bit more risk in that regard. I feel like in general also we've gone out and gotten players that are known to be like the best or one of the best at their position. So we're talking about like Burks, we're talking about Speedy Williams, right? We're talking about like Nick Firmino, like all these players that, like, when you look at them statistically and what they've done for a long time with their teams is be productive and be strong on the field. And I think it's maybe a little overlooked too. We had a lot of players on roster last year that were coming off of like catastrophic injuries, like ACL injuries, like a whole bunch that were like didn't get a lot of playing time for the past like year plus because they were recovering and trying to get back into form. And then we were like, okay, come in here and compete. And then it was hard for some of them. Some of them had lingering injuries that lasted almost the entire season, and we never got to really see them. And I don't think we're making those types of gambles this year. I think we're being like, okay, what do we want and who do we want to do it? And it seems intentionality is present in a lot of what's happening. You know, and Jessica, I will kind of address your point too. Like, it is a little weird how light we are as far as returners. Not even just from year two, but like year 1 and 2 combined. And it's hard when you say goodbye to any players. But I don't know. Maybe I'm more sentimental than the average LSC fan, but it's especially hard whenever you are losing like those year 1 guys, because they were our year one guys. And I feel, and this is no shade at the year two guys, but I feel the connection was just a little bit different with the year one guys. It just, I don't know. It's hard seeing them go. And I think that's why everybody was stressed out. And you have like Tim Meadows blowing up the club on the daily about Nico. I'm like, are we signing Nico? Where's Nico? And then now everybody's feeling like a little stressed about Otis's post where it seemed like a goodbye. After the club was like, he's a returner. And then he posts this and then it's gone. And so you start being like, what's going on with Otis? Was that just like an oddly worded post, or is he out of here all of a sudden? Because especially when you think about players like him, like Nico, like, Hummel, like Kalen Fox, you have these players that over time you start to associate as like faces of the club. And you're thinking like, when I think Lexington, I think them. And, and from maybe like a club standpoint or a coaching standpoint, maybe in your brain, you're thinking, well, wait a second, we want to break that because we want to be brand new. We want to burst into the championship and we're going to build something. But as fans, if you were there from year one, it does get a little hard because you tend to think they're synonymous with who we are. And especially when you think about players like Otis. Like Otis has been perpetually good for us. Like any success that we've had, he's had a huge hand in it. And nobody can deny that. Nobody can say, well, no, he wasn't that good. Like for our club, he was great. He's one of those players that you put it on a t-shirt and you sell it and it'll sell like crazy. So I feel very optimistic about what we're doing. It's just hard as a very invested fan to think that maybe our direction is going to look very different than what it has looked. It's a tough thing. And that's just sports though. You get attached. That's why, as much as I love certain players on any sport, whether we're talking football, football or whatever it might be, I hardly ever allow myself to buy a jersey, a kit, whatever, with a player's name on it, because it's just so uncertain. And it's not because I don't like those players and I don't want to support them, but it's just like, I don't want that reminder every time I look at my closet and I'm like, no, where'd they go? And then I start bawling and my wife finds me in the closet, like curled up into a ball, hugging the kid,
Hey, I got an Andrew Luck jersey, and the dude got a lacerated kidney and retired at like 29 years old. So, I mean, I'm done. That was my last one ever. I'm like,
no more for you.
I don't know if it's luck. I don't know what it is, but it was, man, that was brutal. I get it. But yeah, it's, you gotta pull for the club on the front. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it is. At the end of the day, people are going to come and go, except for the fans, hopefully. Fans are always going to be there, but everybody else is, going to be fleeting. Aside from maybe ownership and fans, the wind changes, everything changes.
I think this is a question, but I think a lot of people are envisioning us to be fast, like competitors with Louisville. I think they just assume that, automatic rivals that will be competing, like the matches will end in 1-1 or 1-0, whatever, they'll be tight matches. Do you guys anticipate that as well? Or do you think it will take some time to like compete with them because they're no slouch?
I think that it's going to take time, and that's not doubting our team. I just think we're having a lot of new, like there's a lot of new happening this year, like a whole lot, coaching staff, players, the tier that we're operating in. Lou City has had perpetual success. That doesn't mean they haven't had stumbles. And I mean, they are changing too. They just lost like Wilson Harris, right? Who is like their golden boy goal scorer. So things are going to look a little bit different for them. It's just, they've had a lot of time to really craft who they are and who they want to be, and make it a reality. And we've had much less time, especially when you consider all of our turnover, not just player wise, but staff. And, it's going to be challenging, but not impossible. I think we can compete, but I'm not going in expecting for us to like drop 5 on Lou City and then have 0 goals. I think if we get some draws and some wins, then we're in pretty solid shape. And any team out there that says, oh yeah, you settle for a draw with Lou City, no, like anybody would. I mean, they're a great program.
I posed the question just because it is my perception and my perception only that our fans, perceive that we could be contenders with Louisville right away. That's why I posed the question.
I think some would. I think a lot of our fans that are fresh to USL in regards to like their first experience is us, I think maybe feel a little bit that way. But I think a lot of fans that are bleed over fans from Lou City, maybe they supported Lou City, but then switched to us when we came on the scene, or they support both of us when they can. I think they know you got to be a little bit like, let's pump the brakes some and have some realistic expectations that, it's going to be tough. That's not saying that we're going to have another like 9th place finish or worse. It's just saying we gotta earn our way there and see what happens.
I do think like culture plays into impact of that as well. It's not just the 11 guys that are out on the pitch. Like as a sports fan, like I know that. I mean, if you're an American football fan, you're seeing what the Chiefs are doing. Like that roster's not that great. Like they aren't putting up great stats. It's like all this, but it's like. But they're the Chiefs, and so
they got Taylor Swift
and
exactly, and the refs. So,
Black magic voodoo.
But it's like I mean, you could even look at this college football championship. Like Ohio State they're playing their 6th national championship game. Like Notre Dame's played in one of them in these playoffs. Like since this whole, I was actually at BCS that Notre Dame made. So it's like. It's just like they've been there. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't mean that they're more talented necessarily, but it's going to take time to get to that like level of like I don't know, not just talent, but just a level of
caliber
with caliber. That's a good way. I'm trying to think of like I don't know. It's just there's something about the team that's been there that's done that. And by the way, like if you're new to USL Championship. Like, do some research on Louisville City because they're probably the best club that's ever played in that league. Like consistently, they're phenomenal. Yeah. So they really haven't had a bad year like ever. So it's just they're the class of the championship, I think. And so, yeah, it's just going to take time. But I do think when it comes to professional sports, like having a little bit of that, those Louisville City guys put on that kit and they know like. They're expected to win, and they've done a good job of it so far. So it's going to be tough.
I completely agree. It's going to be a tricky one. So before we get into preseason, I do want to address, because we did have a question about this, because at this point, like all of the LSC fan base is freaking out about the Ottest stuff and wondering, we did have somebody ask us, like, if perchance he is gone and if we got a transfer fee for him. And maybe we can just open those up to saying, like, if this happens with any of our players, maybe we'll just go that route. Like, what would you guys like to see us invest that transfer fee into?
Well, I mean, keeper would be probably the number one thing, just because that's up in the air right now. I just have no idea. But if we're talking about like what I want, I would like the best midfielder playmaker I could get. That's
Speedy Williams.
Yeah, but he's a defensive midfielder.
Yeah,
more so. I would, someone a little higher up.
Yeah. Nick Firmino.
Sorry, quick. Speedy Williams is like an attacking midfielder name. I love. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to have him, but when I see Speedy Williams, I'm like front foot, attacking midfielder, maybe a forward. So if he's going to be like a 6 or defensive midfielder, it's just going to take some getting used to, and maybe that's just me. Yeah. Maybe I'll go back to calling him Devin or whatever. I don't know. It's just maybe it's me.
I love his story though. Did you see his story with that? He's like, "Are you actually fast?" And he's like, "Oh no, that was like my what did he say? Is his dad's nickname?" And so then they just started calling him that as a kid. And he's like, "I'm not that fast."
I wish I was speedy.
I know.
That's awesome because I assume he's fast.
Yeah. I can't remember where I saw that interview, but it cracked me up because he was just like, he's just like my dad's nickname, and now it's mine, and I just never really was that fast, but I'm speedy now. So
that's awesome.
Those are the best nicknames, though, where you're just like, wait, what? It doesn't even go, and you're like, yeah. It's perfect.
It's like when they call you Handsome Tyler, and I'm just like, I don't.
Yeah, because my real name's not Tyler. I get it. No, it is. I lied.
I love that you needed to clarify that.
We had to put in a community note, like, no, it actually is. It's
I don't want to get community noted. So,
yeah.
Here we are. That's a good call, though, Dylan. Like investing in the midfield. I agree with your first call though at keeper. I feel like if there's one player you want to see be amazing and a mega investment and they stay with you forever that you don't always see, at least not at this level, is a keeper. If your net is safe, you can figure out the rest. If your net is safe, you're in pretty good shape. So I don't know. These hypotheticals stress me out though, being if we sell off your favorite players, what do you want for it? And I'm my favorite player back?
Yeah. And I also don't want to pick a group and be oh yeah, I really want to, a striker too. Am I also saying that I don't think Cam should start? No, I'm not saying that. I don't know what I'm saying. It's just hypothetical. Yeah.
Right. Or maybe even something, investing in the youth academy, the academy system, kind of beef that up some, I'm not a wizard with how those funds can be spent though.
I think the creative team, the social media team, they all need raises. That's what I would do.
Ethan Hone, get a raise, man. Everybody else. There we go. We're advocating right here. Kyle doing everybody justice. So there's also another little bit of a rumor now that we're on rumory things. Not a lot of people that listen, I think, are on Twitter. It's a pretty small portion of Lexington fan base that's on there. It's very active with USL accounts. So there's a lot of USL fans on Twitter. Really the only reason I'm there. I do some blue sky stuff with all the USL people as well. But somebody had posted breaking Daniel Wu is transferring from Greenville Triumph to Lexington. We've not seen anything like that. We've not seen any confirmation. A lot of Lexington fans are on fire about it, especially in the Discord. A lot of them are oh, is Daniel Wu coming? Center back for the Triumph. He's good. When you look at him by the numbers, he's really, really solid person to have there. But it also feels like one of those signings that if we are, in fact, bringing him in, I don't know if we are. If we are bringing him in, I feel like maybe he'd be kind of a prove it style signing where it's all right, we're gonna bring you from the USL League One system and then put you in championship and then maybe see how you can help us. Maybe some U20 minutes. I don't know. If we are getting Daniel Wu, I don't know if you guys know much about him. Just in general though, how do you feel about adding another center back to the mix that's maybe just more of a not really an unknown quantity, but in a sense, kind of an unknown quantity at this level? Yeah, just kind of meh.
Yeah, I feel like we're all probably the same, but yeah, it's cool. I think defensive depth is something we're all probably, concerned about at this time. And I think giving a chance to a younger player or, someone with high potential, I think we're all in favor of that. Just hoping if that's the case, they get to see the field in some sort of form.
Yeah, I agree. Because I get it. You don't want to necessarily just throw anybody out any week, but I would like to see them utilized in a successful way if that's the case. And looking at our center back setup, maybe if we got him, Daniel will feature at some point. Maybe Jaeger Cup games. I don't know, or Open Cup. Maybe there. Open Cup seems like a good spot to test that stuff out. But it does feel like we have our starting center backs in my mind. So it definitely feels like it would be a depth type situation. See what happens from it. I don't know. All I know is if it's legit, if that is actually happening, this weird Greenville Lexington exchange system. I don't know. We're basically sister clubs at this point, I guess. I don't know. We just keep swapping players around. Anthony Patty's playing for them now.
I feel like it's a position that you, I don't know if you can have too many, especially if you're looking at playing
Agreed.
3 at a time. I mean,
yeah.
Right now we have 4 center backs signed. So I don't know if you can have too many, especially one that's 24, whatever he is, and has some potential and some upside. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's a position that, like we saw even this past year, if you lose a center back, it can be pretty detrimental. And you definitely want consistency, and so you want someone that you feel comfortable with. And yeah, I think depth is a good thing for that one.
100%. 100%. I don't think it's a bad thing. I guess we'll see what happens. I don't know. The signings with all the holidays and stuff, it's just kind of like stop, start, stop, start. So I imagine we're getting close to the end of it all based on our roster size that we have currently. So, I mean, I don't know. In my brain, it shouldn't be much more than another week or two, but who knows? I don't know. I don't have an exact date or how many more signings are coming. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out if that actually is happening. I guess we'll find out if the Altes stuff is something to actually be sad over. It'll hit us at some point, and we'll find out the truth behind it all. Right. Let's kind of go into less rumory stuff, but still kind of hypothetical. We got the preseason schedule. It's pretty loaded. We have quite a few games. We've got 7 games that we're playing for preseason, one of which fans can attend, which is really cool. I'm glad about that. I wish they were all open, but I understand that when you go to somebody else's stadium, that's kind of up to them. But I wish all of our home ones, especially the one against UK, was open. That would be cool, because I remember year one when we went to that one, that was fun to just watch. I know it didn't go LSC's way, but it was still a cool experience to expose soccer fans here that are aware of UK to the team. So we've got Columbus Crew 2 happening this week on the 25th, followed by Nashville SC, and that's on February 1st. And that's not like, the MLS Next Pro team. That is Nashville, like full-fledged MLS team that we got.
Can I jump in real quick? I did not realize how soon that this one is. You said there was one on the 25th?
Yeah.
Did not realize that it was this close.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's just like here all of a sudden. I don't know. It's kind of blowing my mind too, man. Then February 8th, we have Detroit City, also a championship side. Then FC Cincinnati 2 on February 15th. February 22nd, Lou City. So we're going to go travel up there and play against them. February 25th, we got UK. And February 28th, which is against the Riverhounds, which USL championship team. That one's going to be the one that's open to fans. So more details are supposed to come later on, but we'll be able to watch preseason, hopefully a pretty polished product, because that will be our 7th and final game in the preseason. You would hope that we're kind of looking like we should look before we embark on the official season opener. And I don't know, it's pretty exciting. I want to get a first look at this. I know that Dylan, you and I were able to attend the Lou City one, which was closed. But we traveled up to Louisville. We watched us play, which, was really, really cool to see. It was nice to kind of get that first feel for the players that we signed and how we might potentially use them. So looking at this schedule as a whole, okay, in the past, we've played a lot of collegiate teams. We've played a few MLS Next Pro teams, sometimes another USL One side. Looking at this being all MLS Next Pro, all MLS, all championship, minus just the UK game. How do we feel? Like, what are we liking or disliking about this preseason schedule?
I don't really have any qualms with it whatsoever. I feel like it's a pretty well balanced one. Experience level wise, pyramid level wise, it's pretty split. So I think it's very good, and I'm not surprised that there's only one open to the public. Obviously, do I wish that was all of them? Yes, because I would go to all of them myself. Yes, but I'm not surprised, because they probably don't want to give too much away, to the people, and they want to save it for the end and have a more finished product to display to the fans, than the first game, which will be sloppy. So
they're all trying to get a feel for each other. You're right.
Yeah.
And then you don't want some random person just posting on them like, oh, LSC is trash this year, and it's like,
exactly,
buddy, it was the first game, and they don't even know each other's names yet. They're working on it. They're gonna get there.
Yeah, they don't want us to go to that and then just like you said, see that the things aren't going well and just have complete doubts about the team and then not even go to the games,
Does anybody have any concerns? Because this comes up a lot. I feel I hear about this a lot with NFL. Does anybody have any concerns with the number of preseason games, especially knowing like Michael Agbula got hurt last year during a preseason game, and then that was a toughie.
I was going to say, I'm curious to see, like, and obviously there will be more signings between now and February 22nd, but 3 matches in 6 days to finish is like kind of crazy. And from a wear and tear standpoint, makes me wonder what's the format of some of these preseason matches are. They're not always your standard, 45-minute halves, 2 halves type of match. And so they really can be a little bit more selective with how they structure these. I'm assuming the one that's open to the public would be a standard match, but there are ways to kind of gamesmanship some of these to because the coaches obviously want to get what they want to get out of them. And so I'm definitely a little curious at that when you can typically, if you see a schedule that's released and there's 3 matches in 6 days, you're like, well, that was some kind of crap scheduling. And then, but to know it's like a preseason and like we had a choice and it's just, so I wonder like what the roster is going to look like at that point. It'll obviously be very different, not very different, but it'll be different. And I wonder too, if some of those have, some different kind of game structures to them.
That's a good point, because I know that in the past we played some preseason games that were like split into thirds, but they were
like 30-minute, 30-minute, 30-minute or something.
Yeah. And it was like different people each time, or like you had mentioned, sometimes it doesn't even equal 90 across the entirety of the scrimmage. So yeah, that's, I don't know. It's a really good point, because that final stretch, it's kind of tough. You go Lou City, which is really, really great. Even preseason Lou City, it's going to be a challenge. UK is a good program. Everybody's like, yeah, it's college, but still a good program. And then the Riverhounds are good finishing off. So you're like, okay, are we going to see like 3 different permutations of the team itself? And so it's like, here's squad experiment 1, here's squad experiment 2, and just kind of like pick the best of it or mush them together however you can. Yeah, it makes me a little nervous with the 3 back-to-back and then just 7 total, because you're like, oh, is it gonna wear anybody down, or are we gonna make it through that okay? And but on the other side of the coin, you got to get everybody ready. And the only way to get everybody ready to play actual matches that matter is to get them used to playing a match that matters as much as it can without actually mattering. So I think that's kind of like our situation that we're in here. What about like the level? Because like in the past we've played our level or lower, like, no shade, but like University of the Cumberlands has been in the mix with this, right? And whenever you think about like, all right, let's polish up this team and get ready, you wouldn't necessarily have that forefront of your mind. They have a good soccer program, but for our level, you would be like, okay, let's challenge ourselves and go out there and find somebody. So what are our thoughts on like the level of competition that we chose to go after for this?
I do think, obviously playing some of the 2 teams now, it made sense when we were in USL1, but maybe those teams now are considered a little bit further beneath where we should be scrimmaging or exhibitioning against. But to me, it seems pretty fair. I mean, it's a good mix, and University of Kentucky is no slouch when it comes to NCAA program, and they'll be up for that one. And so, yeah, I think it's a good mix. And I think the Cumberlands too, that was a coach hookup for what it's worth.
Yeah, right. Because I think we had
their coach was in the youth program, or is in the youth program at SC. But yeah, I get
they're not a bad program. So I hope nobody's like, oh, he's coming after University of Cumberlands, because then we have a couple fans that went there. That's not what it is. I'm just thinking
Patriots fans coming at you. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I think your point was well made. I think this is a good mix of competition, though. Plus, you get to see a few championship sides that you're going to be facing against in the season as well. So, yeah.
Agreed. No notes.
Yeah, and I think it is kind of cool that we chose, and it's probably from a fiscal standpoint the choice is made, but that we chose some Eastern Conference teams, because now that we're in the West, we're not going to see them quite as often. So it is kind of neat to just get a chance to play them. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of a fan of playing outside of your conference if you can, just simply because, like, I don't know, sometimes it's good to kind of build up that, like, all right, we got you next time whenever you play somebody in your conference. But sometimes it's good to just be like, let's save them for when we're ready, and let's not like go out there and already kind of give them the impression that they can just bully us on the pitch. So I think it's cool in the sense that we're gonna play teams we aren't necessarily going to see a lot of, just from that standpoint. So I'm glad we're challenging ourselves. Like the Nashville SC kind of threw me. I was surprised by that one. I was like, oh, okay, like it doesn't say 2. Like I was like, where's the 2 at? And I kept looking for it. So I think it's good to go out and just say, let's kind of like truly test who we're going to be, because for preseason you don't want to just go out and bully opponents to feel good about yourself and be like, oh yeah, we rocked that team of 6-year-olds. Now we're ready. You want to go and be like, all right, we're seeing where our strengths and weaknesses are against like-minded or like-leveled competition. Let's kind of make those tweaks and adjustments before we truly get in there, because that's what preseason really is for. It's not just like, you go out there and do a little bit of running and you're like, okay, I feel fresh and ready. It's, you got to identify that stuff before it's go time. Otherwise, you're going to be in a world of hurt and the season's going to be very long for all the wrong reasons. So I think it's a solid look. Okay. That was a good one. That was real solid. We covered a whole heck of a lot. I feel weird. I feel like I neglected my second child by not talking about Super League so much in this one. But we're going to next episode. Promise, we haven't thrown and cast Super League to the side. There's going to be even more to talk about by the time we're back together, and we are super insanely excited for the next half of the season. Hopefully, it's a little bit warmer once we actually make it to March 8th, and it's not just a winter wonderland. I know sometimes March can be volatile and all of a sudden we get those random super cold, snowy days, but I'm ready to be back in the stables with some warmth in my body. So, yeah, Jessica, sorry.
I was just going to add, so we got February 28th, that match that's open to the public, the preseason, and then the next day we'll have our spring opener for Super League on March 1st. So get your tickets.
So close. I'm ready for action. I'm ready for us to see what they have to offer, especially with the new additions. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's even more waiting. I don't know. I don't know if those are the only 3, but I know we'll have a lot to talk about next time that we're back together, Super League wise. And yeah, I'm psyched. I hope everybody shows out for this team and then gets cream puffs, LSC cream puffs. If that doesn't get you out to a match, I don't know. Then we'll just have to find another baked good that we're good at. Dylan, what baked good can you make to bribe people?
Apple pie.
Oh yeah, it's okay. I'm not a big
pie. Yeah, you're not a pie guy.
No, let's not commit me to too much here.
No, I was saying Dylan has to make it. That's what he's good at.
But as far as the cream puffs go, so we're all contributing something. No,
Kyle has a Blackstone. Kyle's gonna be out there with hibachi. He's gonna make us the onion volcano. And then he's gonna flip shrimp into somebody's mouth. So,
no, that's not gonna happen. That's a culture that I can't just,
cultural
take
appropriation.
That. Right.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
I'll be making some nice pâte au jus, and actually, I've just been watching some, baking championships, and so I can bring some pastries.
Did you just Google those words? Sometime?
That's what I feel like is happening.
No, shoe pastry, pâte au jus.
Pâte au jus, yeah.
Yeah, they call it shoe pastry.
No, the movie is Paddington, and he's a bear. I don't
Paddington shoe, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to be. I'll take one of those Paddington shoes, please.
Yes. It's like,
get out of here. You're cultured. Be gone. I'm sorry. Oh man, but yeah, I don't know. I'm ready. I'm ready to get back into it, whether we have pastries or not. It'll be totally fine. We'll make it work. There's still always like the walking tacos at the concession stand.
True.
Just get one of those and then you'll be fine. All right. Final thoughts before we go. We feel good. We get it all out of our system. We get our fix, our LSC sicko fix. Perfect. All right, everybody. Well, until next time, hopefully this tied you over. I promise it won't be another month. Well, I shouldn't promise that, but I hope it won't be another month. Hopefully it'll be very soon that we see you guys. So until then, you got to do the whole "come on, you greens," right? Just all day, every day. Just shout it at your boss, shout it at your kids, shout it at your dog, whatever makes you feel good. Until next time, everybody.